Good afternoon. What's today? Wednesday afternoon. I'm eye-kuh. This is eye-kuh. This being right here. E-I-K-A, whatever derivative that can come from that. I do love how creative people can be with this name, so go for it. In this particular space, though, BB and Honey, or which trying to be curated around this, BB and Honey, a space where I am. Oh snap! All my stuff is falling off. But a space where I share all of the things that keep me blessed. As denoted in the BB, blessed baby, a key aspect of myself, of eye-kuh, who works with, bathes with, listens diligently to the blessings that surround me, right? And that I'm hoping to share here. BB reads specifically. This is what this is for sure. BB reads with the smiley emoticon and all. Is where I'm hoping to just share my thoughts on books that I get from my library, grab and go, or how any other way they enter my life. I was just at the dollar store earlier this week, and they had a book section, and I was like, maybe one time I can come in here with like a good $5 and like grab some random ones, and maybe I'll do that for one of these too. But yeah, BB and Reads really started off as a space. I don't want to get all into it, but it really started off as a space where I could like collect my thoughts around the books that I was reading and picking up, because I didn't really have anybody to talk to with about like what I was reading, especially like at my pace. But I do love the insight that I get from reading. And so yeah, started off as this, but now it's BB Reads, smile emoticon and all, to really showcase the joy and the blessings of reading. So anyway, I think last time I did children's books, and I still have some children's books that I'll do in the next one. But when I grabbed my children's books the last time, I also got some textual reads to kind of like read between them, because at least for me, I'll speak for myself, the children's books I move through kind of quickly. I will reread them, but like I do move through them obviously a little bit quicker than I would something that's a lot more wordy. And so I kind of got some texty reads along with that. Oh, excuse me, I'm burpy today. But wow. Anyway, I got some texty reads along with that that I'll be talking about this time. On this, I think in this particular section where it was more so like the psychology reads, or I don't know if it would be called like metaphysical. But these two sections were together. They were kind of next to one another at my local library. Oh my gosh, let me slow down a little bit. They were together at my local library. So I was already kind of like, when I was thinking of textual reads to get, I was thinking something more aligned with psychology, as that's what I studied when I was in school, when I was in undergrad. And so I don't know why my interest was there at that particular moment, but yeah, I got some books around that. Let's see which one I'm gonna start with first. Kind of like let me see. We'll start off with this one. PLAYDHD. Look at that cover. By Kirsten, Milliken, Ph.D, all of the credentials at the end that I could say, but Dr. Kirsten Milliken. PLAYDHD, Permission to Play, a prescription for adults with ADHD. And let me see, where do I want to start off with my notes with this book? So I think I picked this up because I picked this up for a few different reasons, but the one reason that I'll share here is because first off, when I was in school, I studied, once again, psychology. And one of one of the specialties that I wanted to practice within the field of psychology was play therapy. And so like I really am an advocate for play as medicine in so many different ways, but that's a different story. That'll be a different offering under Beat Me a Honey. But yes, play as a prescription for all kinds of ailments, where to unlock the imagination, right? To storytell, to do all of these many different things. I really am an advocate for play. And so, and then also I think I was thinking a lot around the prevalence of ADHD, especially I was doing some research around ADHD within Black communities as well, within Black communities, and how that may show up there, and how that may get diagnosed, or how that may get treated there. And kind of just, I was really thinking a lot around ADHD. I have a lot of opinions, not necessarily around the expression of ADHD, but more so around the diagnosis within kind of the world that we live in. To make it very simple, what does that mean, not just for the folks who may have ADHD, diagnosed with ADHD, or not yet diagnosed with ADHD, but definitely express that. What does that mean for them? But also, what does that mean in the context of the world that we live in? And kind of like, how does this abnormal, this pathological situation get diagnosed within it? How does that look again? Like, how is that diagnosed within the context of the world that we live in? And what does that say about the context of the world that we live in? Right? And so I've been thinking a lot around that. And so I wanted to see. I thought this book was pretty interesting because it talked about play, one thing that I really liked. And then I've also been really thinking a lot about not just ADHD specifically, but just really a lot of the diagnosis. Lord forgive me for talking so fast, but all of the mental disorders that are claimed within the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that psychologists use to define, diagnose mental disorders. And so I've been thinking about that, but ADHD is one of them that has been coming up a lot within like my personal experience, and then also just within me researching it. But so for this, that was the approach that I had towards this book, and I felt like that was important to share because I didn't necessarily have expectations going into what this book was supposed to be about. But I think that, okay, I'll just start off here. I really did like that the author herself is someone who claims to be an ADHD coach who herself is diagnosed with ADHD. And so, where was I going with that? I like that was the case. And so, like, this book was written from that perspective, right? And, right, she doesn't necessarily speak for everybody who may or may not be diagnosed with ADHD, but, like, I did like that this book was written from a perspective of someone who has personal experience with this, with what that may feel like, what that internally may like look like, and who works with a lot of patients or clients who also identify with that as well. And so, like, why I say that is because, like, her playfulness came through in this book, and, like, even I think she mentions, like, she didn't want to, one of the how do I want to word this? Probably shouldn't have talked about this first. This one is pretty difficult. But one of the criteria, that's the word that I'm looking for. One of the criteria for ADHD, whether for for hyperactive impulsive presentation is having difficulty remaining seated, difficulty engaging in activities quietly. This is for the presentation of it, I should say that. Difficulty waiting or taking turns. And so, like, she was really trying to make this book concise and short, and very much so, like, you know, to the point, as to not make this too overwhelming of a subject or something to, like, hear about or learn about. I'm falling all over the place, but yeah, she didn't want to make this too overwhelming, and so she kind of made it for, and once again, she doesn't speak for everybody with ADHD, but she made it with that consideration in mind. Like, you probably don't want to be reading this huge text, all of this research, all of this, like, jargon and da-da-da. And so she made the book playful. One of the things that I like that she did was, like, you know, she added graphics in there. She switched up the color of the pages. And so to really get an idea of, right, like, incorporating play into even just the mundane of activities, because that's what the majority of this book was about, right? Like, incorporating play into these mundane activities that may be hard for folks with ADHD to actually move through and function through because of however their presentation, however that expression presents itself. And so, like, to find ways to incorporate these strategies, these playful strategies, to be beneficial so that you can function, so that folks with ADHD can function with the tasks that they have, while also stimulating their brains and in the appropriate ways that doesn't necessarily say, you have ADHD, like, you deserve to be, like, cut out from this entire experience. You can't do these jobs. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, X for you, or you can't participate in this work. And I think I'm thinking more specifically in classrooms too. So it's like, it's not like we're exiling folks with ADHD from participating in communal spaces, right? Like, how we can incorporate, even if it's just a 5-minute play break, or, you know, she has a lot of tips and stuff in here, and, like, how you can do that for yourself. Once again, this is for adults, but I was really thinking of it with children as well. But yeah, how we can incorporate play so that, you know, we just don't get bored. Like, but folks with ADHD specifically do not get bored and or feel as if they cannot move through a task that could very well be daunting. Like, certain things are just boring, but how can you add play to these tasks? How can you be playful enough with these tasks for the things that are boring, to make it ease, to give you the correct stimulation that your brain needs to actually feel motivated enough to move through it. And I think I talked a little bit about this when I was talking about Max and the Won't Go to Bed show, in one of the children's books that I read, and one of those series. It's there. But when I was talking about this, I was talking about routines and how to incorporate playful moments within them. So I feel like this book gave me some ideas around that as well. It goes a little into the brain science, and she speaks to some research as to why play is helpful. And I'm an advocate, so I was just like, once again, I definitely have to, always with textual reads, there will be a list of sources. And don't skip out on those, because those sources will inform the author, which books tend to be informative and insightful, right? And so it will inform you in some kind of way. And so it's good to know, like, where people are getting their ideas and their work from, right? And to read that critically. But that's, once again, a different section of this. I will at some point be working a workshop or curriculum or something around how to read textual reads, because even though this is a pretty small book, it's only about Like, reading wise, it's only about 139 pages. And that's not, for me, once again, for me, that's not necessarily too thick or too big of a read that makes it daunting for me to read. But at the same time, it's a lot of information in here. It is a lot too. It's a lot of words. Not gonna lie to you. Once again, more graphics. It is a lot of words. And I will not take that away. You know, for some folks, this is like, oh, whatever. But for some, even just the page can be very overwhelming, and I definitely understand that. And so at some point I will be working a workshop to make reading be such a less daunting task. But yeah, it is a lot of words in here. Ideas, right? And she really did try to make it fun by like adding in like these very surprises. But I think I was talking about resources, how to read these things. Oh, that was something else. There's this section in here where she just like flipped the page. This always does this to me. But flips the page upside down, or flips the book upside down, so you can see that it's upside down, or that I'm flipping the page upside down. And so she did a lot of that as well. I think I was talking about adding in playful routines and looking into those sources that can inform even more playful routines. I have to say my biggest drawback with this book was that, not even because I do not have a formal diagnosis of ADHD or the like or anything like that, but I feel like the biggest drawback of this particular book was that I feel like it just wasn't written for, let me just say it this way. It was written for someone, an adult with ADHD who works a corporate job and who works, you know, according to their own schedule, their own, you know, way of doing things. There are sections of it where it's not necessarily geared towards that, but I could tell, like even a lot of the examples that she gave was like around I feel like folks who have a lot more autonomy within their lives. And so, like, when I think about working class people and people who are working 12-hour shifts a day in this factory type thing, some of these tips could definitely be useful. I think at least for the corporate level or the managerial level to incorporate within this job. But I think to take this, to kind of place that autonomy on people themselves when certain folks may not necessarily have the capabilities to incorporate play in this way, or they could get fired, they could be in jeopardy of like losing their position, all of these things. I feel like this book wasn't necessarily written with an expansive group of people with ADHD in mind, just really focused on those who has more autonomy over their work life than others. Which, that's you, that's okay. Also another thing, because I'm gonna be pervasively honest, Shawty is white. So I feel like Shawty was not thinking about Black people when she was writing this. And I can't say that that's the worst thing in the world. I don't necessarily feel like she herself should be talking to that experience specifically, but I do think that it was limiting in that way. And it was pretty, I think, clear for me to tell like that who she was writing this for. Like, I'm not just saying this because I was trying to be critical of this book. I am critically reading a lot of things, but like, you know, she just, it just wasn't, that perspective wasn't included in her, or it wasn't focused or centered in her writing. Even just with like, you know, when she was naming folks, like famous people. Like there's a history section of people with ADHD, and those people, a good chunk of them were white. And then there were a lot of, like, she named some, to be completely honest, she named some slave owners in here. And so I was just like, I was pretty uncomfortable with that, I have to be honest. And she named Christopher Columbus of all people. So it was just like, and you know, she named him in this light of like, look, he had ADHD and he was able to conquer a million things. And I'm like, okay. I feel like, you know, you're not necessarily considering who that hurt in the process. And so I feel like that was a limitation within this book. So as far as if I will have this on my shelf or not, probably not. I will grasp. I think it did at least excite me to really think about incorporating play into any and all of the environments or programs and things that I create, because genuinely play is useful medicine. So I think next time I'll get something more geared towards just play itself. But yes, PLAYDHD. A Field, the next book. Sorry, y'all. I'm kind of breezing through this. Night Vision, A Field Guide to Your Dreams by Theresa Cheung. Illustrations by Chassagne. So I'm going to post these. Once again, I always post these within the captions so that it can be easily accessible. More easier to access. More easy to access. I think that's how I want to word that. But this book, this text right here. So the context of why I picked up this book, I have been a vivid dreamer since I was a child, but I think within the last 3 years I've been consistently documenting, recording my dreams when I remember them, when I wake up in the morning. In dreams, I can go into a whole rant about how absolutely, I keep hitting myself in the face with these books, but how absolutely useful, how absolutely valuable, that's the word, dreams are. I can go into a whole rant about that, but I will not do that today. But know that this is the context of why I picked up this book specifically. Like I said, I've been doing dream work for about 3 years. So like, I don't necessarily feel as though I need a book to interpret my dreams for me. Usually I talk to people about my dreams. Usually I have conversations with people around dreaming. So they offer great enough insight for me to like interpret my dreams. But I picked up this book because, one, I like the way that it feels. It's a really nice cover. I don't know if you can, like, if it's visible or apparent when I'm showing you, but I like the cover of this. I really like the dark feel. I really like the graphics when I just was flipping through it. Listen, Chassagne, I do not want to say that person's name wrong, but like, look at these images, these illustrations. I was really digging this. And so like, this is probably the first time I've ever like seriously taken like a dream book into consideration. Because like I said, usually I just talk to people around my dreams. My parents. Dreams have been quite valuable in my family for a while. So like, I feel like, you know, the way that dreams, just showing some illustration here still, the way that dreams can be interpreted, I feel like if you're around folks that can understand the symbols and understand the values of dreams, that has provided me at least with great enough insight and interpretation that kind of these books though I may be able to kind of like pull from them at some point, I don't feel like often enough they're exhaustive. Like they include everything. More illustrations. So yeah, as far as this book goes, I really did Night Vision, A Field Guide to Your Dreams. Just to say it one more time, Night Vision, A Field Guide to Your Dreams. As far as this book goes, I really did enjoy. There is a part where they are talking about kind of like the science behind dreaming. Something that I really took from this book specifically was that I'm a vivid dreamer, and I've always kind of been, but it blows my mind to think that we really only dream for part of our sleep cycle. We don't dream often the entirety of our sleep cycle. And it's said through science specifically that the cycle at which you are dreaming is your REM cycle, which is your rapid eye movement cycle, REM cycle. And at this point, the eyes have been detected to be moving rapidly, as if they are processing and looking through, or they are taking in information, right? And so like this is the cycle, this is the sleep part, the cycle within our sleep. I am so off of it today, but this is the part within our sleep cycle that we are actively dreaming. And so with that, I started to time myself. I would wake up at like I would say like 5 or something, and I would realize that at 5 something, if I go to bed at the consistent time that I usually go to sleep around, which is like between 12 to 2, at like around 5, if I wake up around then, like to just go to the bathroom or something, like I will not recall a dream. Like I'll be like, oh, I didn't dream yet. Like kind of like I was asleep and I knew I was asleep, but I wasn't dreaming yet. But between the hours of 6 to 8 is when I'm actively dreaming. And so then I would go back to sleep, wake up at around 8, 9 o'clock, and like then I'll be like, wow, like I would remember the fullness of my dream more often than not. And so yeah, it was really cool for that was something I knew, but like this book specified on that a little bit, talked about that a little bit. And so like I actually got to kind of like know when I'm actually dreaming. I'm gonna take some water. I feel like that's why I'm like skipping over words too, because I'm like dry and yes, that's better. There is some mention. There is some mention around the science of dreaming, but also the history of dreaming. Those who've studied dreams, and if you're familiar with psychology, you know 2 really big names that come up often, especially within Western, specifically within like our Western understanding of psychology, is Freud. I was about to call that man Fred. It would have been like Freudian slip, but Freud and Carl Jung. And so those 2, there is extensive material written by Carl Jung. That's Carl Jung, by the way. There's extensive writings of his that talks about the layers of dreaming, his beliefs around dreaming, what dreaming meant, right? He had the belief, I think, that dreaming could be a way for your subconscious or your unconscious mind to be like to be processing events, and or a way to access your subconscious and unconscious mind, and that within that subconscious and unconscious mind live these universal archetypal symbols that they can be universal, but I think that he mentions this too within his own specific writings. It's not mentioned in this book, but cultural symbols too, right? So like, I think that I just had a dream the other day recently. This is the dream that I bring up often now, where I had a false awakening dream. And when I woke up, this tree was just in the corner of the room that I was in, because I woke up falsely. Like, I thought I was waking up for real, but it just so happened that I was just waking up in my dream. But this tree was dancing in the corner, this little plant, and I was like, I don't know what plant this is, but if it's known, like, my maternal lineage is very connected to plants. They're connected to the ground. They like their plants. They like their leaves. That's something that I'm just now starting to find appreciation in. But they really love this, and so like, that's a cultural symbol for me because of kind of like, you know, my lineage, right? But you know, that could be a universal symbol for something else. But like, you know, it's a universal archetypal symbol, but then it's the cultural symbols that lives within our, according to Jung, within our conscious and our subconscious minds, or could be, you know, activating our conscious, our unconscious and subconscious mind, speaking to us the things that we need to know, the emotions that we have yet to process, the experiences that we have lived through that once again we have yet to process fully. And then Freud believed, according to this book and based on like background information that I know around Freud too, that these dreams often depicted a sexual nature. Freud was up there with his beliefs. But yes. So Sigmund Freud has a book, The Interpretation of Dreams, that suggested that dreams are driven by the dreamer's unconscious desires, thoughts, and motivations. These, he believed, are typically sexual urges that are hidden or repressed when we are awake. So like, this was Freud's interpretations of dreams. So when he wrote about dream interpretations, this was his backing behind it, right? While Carl Jung did not, he believed that dreams were far deeper than simply repressed sexual instincts, and his great contribution to dream interpretation theory was the notion of the collective unconscious. So that's what I was kind of getting at, where this, he proposed, is a store of inherited feelings, experiences, and instincts common to all humans. These inherited patterns reveal themselves in dream symbols, which he called archetypes. So it was probably better for me to just read, because that was easier. So yeah, it talks a little bit about the science behind it, about a tiny bit about dream working. This is not, once again, an exhaustive guide. And that's why I think I picked this up as well, is because there are dream interpretation books that you'll see, or that, you know, that you'll find, and like, they'll be super thick. They will have every little detail in there, and that's completely cool. But for me, that's not what I wanted this time around. But when I was reading, I did like that it was like, each topic is really only one page. So like, when they talk about the science of dreaming, even, it just kind of takes up a whole 2 pages of the book, but like one whole opening of the book. So it's not this huge or this very like texty type situation. It's pretty, oh, I did not see this. Oh yes, I did. Yeah, it's not this texty read. It's just meant to give you very quick guidance on topics that definitely should be explored deeply and looked into with a lot of intentionality and care. Wow, I did not see that either. There was some parts that I'm missing in this book, but yeah, it's meant to be a, you know, something that you can just like really pick up and maybe grasp some very basic forward information and then like kind of build around it or look into it deeper. And so yeah, this book also mentioned, I'm really skipping over a lot of things. It also had some mentionings around like how to create a really great dream environment, the kind of dream work that would be useful, or how to like build up your dream work patterns or your practice, how to refine your dream work practice, which is something that like I said, I've been doing over the last few years, which is recording it every day, which is making sure that the environment that I sleep in is comfortable, that like I have all of the necessary things, like I'm in pajamas or not, that, you know, make me feel and sleep comfortably. I sleep consistently with rain noises on, so like that helps me to like really fall asleep peacefully and I even have like a waking practice to where like if I wake up in the morning, and I have to get so much better at this, but when I wake up in the morning, the best thing for me to do is to not just wake up and grab my phone, because the moment that I grab my phone is the moment that I will forget my dreams. But if I wake up and I, you know, like just take the time to breathe for a little bit, I think I do like lip rolls and things in the morning. When I do that, then it's like, okay, that helps me to recall my dreams better. I write those down, so like I try to let that be the first thing that I do when I grab my phone instead, is to, you know, write my dream down. But yeah, it gives you tips and things like that too. So once again, it's a quick guide. It's not necessarily something that will tell you everything that you need to know about dream work, but it could be useful. And then one section I really loved of this book is the dream classification section. And this is not necessarily visible as I'm showing it on the camera, but the dream classification section, which, like the moment that you have a dream, I dream about a lot of different things at once. So like I may have a few different classifications going at once for one dream. But yes, it just says, right, the dream classification is a central part of dream research and interpretation. So the first thing you should do when you have written down your dream is try to classify it. So it just tells you what kind of dream this is. And there's some examples. I'll give some examples. This can be an amplifying dream, when your dreaming mind dramatically exaggerates a situation in your waking life or one of your personality traits to make a point or teach you something. That would be called an amplifying dream. Y'all, and I got one more book to go. I don't know how I'm making it through this, but yeah, I had a dream around that specifically. There was a time where I was like, or I had a dream classified as that specifically recently, where I kept telling myself, like, while I was awake, like, I'm gonna shave my legs, I'm gonna shave my legs, I'm gonna shave my legs, but I just kept putting it off. And then one day I like slept, I was dreaming, and when I looked down at my legs in my dream, my legs were like full of hair, which is like, that is what it is. Like, I'm not necessarily even concerned about leg hair that much, but it was just like my leg hair was like, it was like not even realistic to how hair even grows on my legs. It was just like completely amplifying. Anticipatory dream, when your dream showcases likely outcomes for an event that is going to happen the next day. I usually have anticipatory dreams when I feel like I used to have them all the time when I was like in elementary school, and it would be like the first day of school, the night before the first day of school, I would without fail, just dream about the first day of school, what was going to happen. All the I would be there. All of the things that could go wrong. All of the things that could go right. Just the anticipatory dream. Cathartic dreams, which offers an outlet for emotions that may be pent up or hidden in waking life. Daydreams, false awakening, which I just talked about that not too long ago. Factual dreams, also known as daily processing dreams. These dreams simply involve replay of scenes from your daily life with little variation. So yeah, sometimes sometimes within my false awakening dreams, I may think I'm up, and so then I get ready, I'm eating breakfast, and even though I'm dreaming about all of this, it's like I'll be dreaming. I'll be doing very basic things. Healing dreams, inspirational dreams, mutual dreams. I'm aware of what that is. I've done it just a few times, and that was more so accidentally, but sometimes two people can have the same or similar dream experience on the same night or within a few days of each other, so that's a mutual dream. Physiological dreams are dreams that are symbolic representations of your bodily health at the time. Psychic dreams, which I have a lot of those. Recurring dreams. Voices. I had a voices dream last night where I wasn't dreaming, like I wasn't seeing anything, like visual things weren't happening in my dreams, but I was having a conversation and I could hear the dialogue. I could hear the dialogue of the dream and like what was going on within the dream, but I couldn't see. So sexual dreams, wish fulfillment dreams. So yeah, this book includes some really cool classifications that I was like, that's helpful to know. That's really helpful to know. And then it goes, and then within the last section of the book, it goes into some common dream themes. And I'll go over what some of those are. Pets, animals, relationships, childhood, birth, creativity, loss, disasters, spirituality, family, elements, social media, space, adventures, emotions, erotica, body, anxiety, journeys, vehicles, ambition, numbers, letters. So it goes through quite a bit. I didn't name them all, but it goes through quite a bit. Once again, for all of those sections, they're only like a page long. So please know that this is not like something that can give you detailed interpretational information, because there's a page for each of those themes, which there's a lot of themes that they cover, but not in a great enough detail. So I think that I'm going to speak out of my own mouth here and advocate for even beginner baby dream workers. Like, talk to your people, talk to me. I love talking about dreams, so it's like talk about your dreams to your folks, so that you can, maybe gather some insight that way, instead of just relying on a text. Because I think that, and I was going to talk about this as the drawback to this book, is that, and why I mentioned Carl Jung earlier, with not just it being universal symbols, but me articulating that cultural symbols should be considered when doing dream interpretation. Because what's going to happen is that, like, we don't know Theresa Cheung. She gives information in the back, and that's what I was marveling at earlier, right? Because she gives information on how you can contact her even. But we don't know Theresa Cheung and where she comes from, and necessarily her cultural understanding, and like how she may interpret things, and who this book was written for, once again, may not necessarily include the totality of everyone's cultural perspective of what a certain symbol can mean, what a certain theme can mean. So once again, this is a page to talk to you about erotica. Like, there's so many things that could happen within a dream. Certain symbols that necessarily may not be mentioned here, or may not be considered worth mentioning here, because once again, this is a quick guide. Also because, it depends on how Theresa Cheung is, this person's understanding of the symbols based on their own references, based on their own upbringing and their own work, right? That could lead itself to being interpreted in a completely different way than what it should be interpreted if you yourself are dreaming. But once again, you pretty cool to, like, come here to at least see what's being said, if you would so like to do that, and see if there's anything that you can draw from that may be insightful to your dream. But yeah, wanting to mention that. Once again, talk to your people about your dreams. But also, it's nothing wrong with, I think one of the things that I kind of pulled from the themes, at least, was, I think I dreamed about water recently. But one thing that is mentioned to do within this book to strengthen dream work is to, like, kind of like maybe think about a theme and kind of really consider that theme throughout your day, so that it has more of a chance to show up in your dreams, and then, like, how that could be interpreted later, and, like, kind of utilizing the book to help interpret that dream later. I thought it was really cool. I think I had a dream around water, being in this big, I've been dreaming about water a lot, but being in this vast thing of water. And I saw someone close to me in the same pool, the same body of water that I was in, like dunk their head in. And so, like, obviously that part won't necessarily be mentioned in here, but going through the elements page could, bring me some insight. So yes, night vision, a field guide to your dreams. I knew textual reads was going to make me talk longer. I knew it. But still, I was like, I can get through this in 30 minutes. Okay, last one. The hidden gifts of the introverted child. Helping your child thrive in an extroverted world. Now, this book, once again, I was in the psychology section, but this book was a find for real. I wasn't expecting to get this book when I went to the library. I just picked it up kind of off of, like, I'm going to see what this is about. As I said before, I studied psychology, so I kind of, knew of the temperament between, like, of introversion and the temperament of extroversion. But, like, it's not something that I've ever applied or thought of for myself or for the people around me. It's not like a classification that I, like, walk around with in my mind, trying to consider where I or someone else may fall. But this book felt like I was reading about myself. And that was very interesting. Once again, introversion, extroversion, ambiversion. However, this kind of whole temperament scale is fluid, and it can move all kinds of different ways. So it's not as if I'm taking this read word for word and being like, this is exactly me. But there were parts in here where I was like, wait. So this has been the case this entire time. So yes, I'm just gonna kind of read from the inside flap. Dr. Marti Olsen Laney. Oh, that's who wrote this book. I'm sorry, y'all. Dr. Marti Olsen Laney not only knows exactly how introverted children feel, she grew up on the far end of the introvert spectrum, but also know how to help them. So I want to mention that again, that this introversion, extroversion is more like a spectrum rather than it being these binary points of like you're either introverted or extroverted. Your temperament is more introverted or extroverted. It could depend on a number of circumstances and situations where you may find your temperament at any given position. So a family therapist and foremost researcher on introversion, she knows the neurological reasons for introversion, how introverts or innies can function, and what they need to succeed. So, yeah, she shows how to establish strong parent-child bonds to foster feelings of security and emotional resilience. How to establish routines, which when it comes to the everyday rounds of eating, sleeping, and doing homework, are key to helping an introvert recharge energy stocks. So I'm not going to read too much because I feel like my voice is not in a reading place right now. But, yeah, I really have to say, like, I love this book. I don't know if I said this about this book, but this is a book that I feel like I would keep on my shelf. It wouldn't be something that I pull from often, but I feel like it could be useful for other people to know that it's there. If they ever see it in my space, they can pull from it too. So, absolutely think that I would have this book on my shelf. I do not take everything in this book to be factual and or true for myself, but it is a wonderfully written, let me come back. It's a wonderfully explainable guide, informational text, if you will, around introversion specifically. There are some mentions around extroversion in here, but I don't necessarily like how, even though, you know, the author speaks to the fact that this is a spectrum, I feel as if there were moments in here where they felt like they were at odds, right? Extroverted and introverted, and that it was explained only in this very extreme point of view, where that it was like introverted are all the way over here and extroverted are all the way over here. And there are some points where it's not like that exactly, but there were some times where I felt like extroversion and those who may be more prone to extroversion and temperament were kind of like put as an opposite, or put not even just as an opposite, but put in opposition to introversion. And the author does go into some level of detail, gives some resources, gives some guidance on how to kind of like, you know, allow an extroverted temperament and an introverted temperament to work together, and how they can kind of come to a balanced perspective. But I think that meeting in the middle didn't necessarily speak to the fact that this temperament can be nuanced, once again, based on circumstances. Like, there are certain situations where, like I said with this book, I felt like I was reading a lot about myself, but there are situations where I am definitely more introverted in temperament. And there are situations where I'm more extroverted in temperament. Circumstances where that may be a lot better, which is on social media. It's funny because on social media I feel a lot more extroverted, but on, like, in my personal daily life and my living day to day, I'm very much so like to myself in my bubble. I really do need a lot of extra time to process things. I need a lot of, look at this. This is why, because people scream in my house. But, like, you know, I need a lot of time to process my emotions. I need a lot of time I do take a lot of things inwardly and like to figure out things inwardly more than I like to kind of like go out and do things. And I will go out and I will go talk to people, but that's after I've done the work to do it internally first. And I think that's my position for real. I don't know if somebody's coming. But trying to make sure. Okay. But that's my natural disposition for real, and I've been reacquainting with that since being in pandemic mode. I feel like this was definitely a reaffirmation of my introverted temperament, where I'm just like, not even just like I love to be at home, but I love to be in a space that feels familiar to me and to do work from that space. I feel a lot more comfortable to do a lot more things when I can do it from my own familiar space rather than having to constantly go out and be thrown into the unknowns of being with a lot of people that I don't know, or being in a situation that is more unfamiliar to me. I can do it, I will do it, but I need a lot of time to prepare for it. I need a heads up. I need so much stuff in order to just really feel like comfortable in doing that. So yeah, that's reaffirming that for me. One of the things that I really love that she did in this book was that she talked about the neural pathways that your brain takes in order to process certain events. And so for extroverted dominant temperament, like there is a quicker way, because there's a quicker neural pathway that is being taken within the brain, because the point here is to get quick, accurate information and to do things quickly and to be able to like handle them as soon as they happen, right? Like you have to be able to like, it's quick fire. Like I have to know exactly what to do in this moment. And it's really good to have that temperament sometimes, because sometimes that's what a circumstance or a situation calls for. It calls for you to make quick decisions. It calls for you to not take the time to be like, wait, I need to process this, right? Like, because sometimes the situation, the circumstance can be imminent, and making that quick decision is important. So like, boom. For extroverted dominant temperament, that can be that can be the way that they feel stimulated, or this is the way that they can feel involved in life, right? And they feel good, they feel exhilarated by that quick rapid firing of the neural brain waves, right? Whereas for an introverted dominant temperamental being, right, that quick firing can overwhelm. That quick firing can make it very overwhelming and daunting to exist and to know what to do and to make appropriate decisions, right? For those where that quick rapid firing that makes you feel good about the decisions you're making. For introverted folks, for introverted dominant folks, that rapid firing is like, it's an overwhelming process. And that part, I was like, when I read that, I was like, and see, the thing is that I know that that's what's happening, but to have it be explained in a way that's like, this is what's happening. I feel that happening, but I'm not necessarily aware of how that's happening. And so that was really useful, right? Where in the introverted temperament neural pathway connection railroad thingy, that way there's a longer process. It goes within the brain, okay. It goes through a longer process, right? Which means, I won't say which means, but kind of in this way, it makes for, and this is something that I really knew about myself prior to, but it really makes for moments where I am, hold on. Okay. This thing was going to eat up this video, and I could not do it. Okay, let me come back to a different point. I had to flip off my things and everything. Okay. So, something that I knew about myself was that that like when it comes to conversation, right, it's easier for me to remember in the long term everything that was said. But if you are talking to me right now and like my short-term memory is kind of like very limited, right? It's only keeping very small amounts of information because my brain is kind of moving through, I won't say my brain, but how this is explained, how this neural pathway is explained, is that this information is being taken a longer route, and the route that it is taking makes it easier or makes it more susceptible for information to be stored in the long-term memory aspect or part of your brain. Whereas the short-term memory aspect, which is where that where that quick firing is happening, for extroverted dominant folks or temperament, is more susceptible, or extroverted temperament, dominant temperament is more susceptible to information being stored within the short-term memory aspect of the brain in order to make those quick decisions, to be able to make those, right? That quick movement, to know exactly what to say. But I'm like, for me, I need to, I'm so great at listening to things because it's like I'm really taking in information and processing it in real time, or taking it in real time, so that even if it's like I can't necessarily remember exactly everything and I'm not necessarily responding to everything that you said right in this moment, there is a high percentage, a high chance, and it happens to me all the time, where like I'll remember what someone says later and I'm like, oh, I should have said this. I should have definitely, and not just like on like brain fog kind of thing. It's like, I really should have said that. Like, I don't know why I didn't think of that in that moment. And then I'll go back and I'll tell this person later, because I'm a big advocate for continuing conversation. I'm like, please, when it comes to first impressions, I'm like, please. I take time. So I really did appreciate that within this book. I really appreciated this book a lot because it talked a lot about the introverted temperament as a temperament. And I love that it did that. At the beginning, I don't think that she necessarily kept up with that language throughout the book. I think that she just more so assigned it to people instead. But I do like that at the beginning of the book that she named it as a temperament, which means just that, like, there's kind of, your temperament is just like, think of it as like the temperature. It has the same root word, right? Like the tempered, the very leveled aspect of yourself, like how you are when you are I want to say when you're calm, but it's really just like, you know, how your emotions kind of like ebb and flow, right? And how like your feelings ebb and flow. And so like that temperament, how they ebb and flow, like when you're more introverted dominant, may be like, it may look a lot differently than how the temperament may like ebb and flow. Your temper, your feelings, your emotions, these things, that's really hard to explain, but how it may ebb and flow when you're more extroverted. Person, I'm going to see if I can find that really quick. But I did like that she explained it that way, and that she explained it as like, you know, appreciating the differences in the design, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be here, let me see. I know it's right in the beginning. But yeah, the differences in design. And how we can appreciate that. It doesn't necessarily, because even within the title it says helping your child thrive in an extroverted world, right? And so like it's appreciating the fact that introverted folks or those with an introverted temperament may have just as much contribution and much as many gifts, right? And I think that one of the gifts that she talked about is that you have introverted people, because of this like long-term memory, because of how attentive and how considerate, right, this like how well things are being internalized, that it kind of creates friendships in a way, or it can lead friendships to being more rooted in like conversation and like rooted in that, like that's a very keynote of mine. Like I like talking to people like talking to me, but it like really makes for this very like I'm not sure how to describe it, but just like this very foundational way of relating, where it's like you can have these very long, intense sometimes, but these very intimate and intricate conversations with folks. So I think like that was just like one of the gifts that she mentioned. So yeah, I'm on the part with neurotransmitters. Here's the image. So I'm going to see if I can put this. This is going to focus just a little bit for me. The balance act. So I'm going to read this. Innies and outies maintain balance when they are functioning around their set point. So like this is kind of like where this temperament thing comes in, right? Where it's like we maintain balance within like our emotions. We remain tempered in our feelings and our emotions and our arousal, when we are functioning around like our set point. So like our set point, which is kind of like where that idea of like where your temperament is, right? Are you more introvertedly temperamented? Is your temperament more introverted? Or is your temperament more extroverted, right? And this once again can depend on circumstance, situation, who you're around, but that set point kind of like lets you know how far you can move in all of the directions, right? So they can function outside their natural range for a short time, but they will be stressed if they have to stay out of range for too long. And that's for anybody. If an extroverted person or an extroverted dominant temperament being, right, is kind of like not within their set point of like, you know, where they are dominant, and they have to kind of like move into the range of introverted for a very long sustained period of time, right? That may be very, very uncomfortable for them. That may be like, let me get out of here. I need to go interact with someone. I need to go move my body. I need to go do something, right? And so I really like that she explained it that way, because then I feel like it helped me visualize in my own mind where it is, how far I can move from my set point before I'm bending too much, before I'm very uncomfortable, and before like I'm just like, okay, I gotta get out of here. I need to go recharge. I need 10 days to myself now. Like that's me. So yeah, and she gives a lot of information on how to center introverted dominant temperaments and how to incorporate them into the classrooms, into friendships, into familial relationships, into, let me see, there was something else, into like, you know, how to deal with bullying. Once again, yeah, the care that introverted dominant temperaments can hold, or that are useful for them. And I very much so agreed with that aspect too. But once again, I definitely feel like this book has some drawbacks in that it doesn't necessarily include the perspective of certain factors that make folks, especially within, like, I always think about the Black community because I'm Black, but I think about my blackness a lot, and I think about how this shows up within and how we respond to this within black communities. And so, like, you know, I definitely don't feel like, once again, Dr. Marti Olsen Laney really centers that perspective. Wouldn't necessarily expect her to, because this is not her background. But I would be interested to reading or to knowing more, or, you know, researching more on, you know, how that cultural nuance can play a part into how we respond and how we experience introverted dominant temperaments within our people, right? But once again, she definitely gives some tips, and gives some very useful tips. I think one of the care tips was creating routine, which has been something that I've been working on for the last 2 or 3 years, and I have to say that it is more than helpful. It's more than helpful for me to have, like I said before, a heads up, a routine, something where you can't just be like, okay, we going to this party 10 minutes before. Like, that doesn't work for me. And that doesn't even work for me, like, if it's like the day of and I didn't know, I had no plans to do this, or if we driving somewhere, you know how things like that happen, right? Where it's like, oh, you riding around with somebody and they want to take you to all of these places that wasn't in the original setup. And it's like, you know, I like a heads up sometimes. You know, I can, once again, move beyond that set point, but I can't stay there. I can't stay outside of that too long. I can't bend and stretch myself too long, because that automatically it drains me. I be drained. I literally be drained. And that's why I love this book so much, because I was like, thank you for, like, letting me know that what I'm feeling in my body and what it is, that temperament that is speaking to me is not, you know what I'm saying, yelling at me, or it's not wrong. It's not to be ignored. So yeah, I really appreciated that. I like me a good routine. I like knowing what's going on. I can't always predict life, and that's why I said sometimes it's gonna be useful to activate that neural pathway within the brain where I have to make quick decisions. But I'm able to do that a lot more when the things that I can the routines that I can create for myself, when I have these stable things, when I have the stability and the security from the routines that I create, I'm able to kind of like be more responsive and be more present in situations that may require those quick responses from me. And yes, I'm gonna need a lot of time after that. I need a lot of break after that, but it at least helps me to be a lot better in that. So I really did appreciate this. A book that I would have on my shelf. I would say it more and more often, more and more, to make it clear. Not everything in this book felt accurate or felt like it was speaking to me directly, but I think a lot of what is in this book can be useful, can be insightful, and you can play around with it, right? Like, if you know some introverted, dominant temperaments in your life, like, you know, we can begin to include this. We can, you know, ask questions. What if we did this way? We can try to, like, you know, work with our introverted dominant beeps a lot more, and a lot more intentionally, right? Not to just be like, okay, go over there, go be quiet in your bubble. Because one of the myths that she spoke about in this book that was so important for me to realize too is that it's not like I don't want to interact, or that I don't want to get to know people, or that I don't want to that introverted dominant temperaments don't want to be involved in social activities at all. It's just more so we kind of like to do it at a pace that doesn't ask for us to move, and I'm speaking very generally here, but we don't like to do this in a pace that kind of requires all of these unsuspected unexpected events or circumstances that we had no time to prepare for, that we had no time to really think about or consider. And sometimes it's really just being like having just a time schedule. This book is written for kids, but for children, but I'm like, listen, adults could use this too. It could just be as simple as that, right? I need a second. Can you, before, I think one of the things was like, yeah, giving this child a time schedule instead of coming to me and asking me if I can do something right then and there in that moment. Hey, in 15 minutes and 30 minutes and an hour later today, my sister does this with me a lot, and I appreciate it. She tries to get ahead. She tries to really give me a heads up to let me know and to give me the choice to either do something or to not do something. So it's like, hey, in like such and such amount of time, can we go to the store? And so like, yeah, I may be like, I don't want to go to the store, I don't want to get wrong, it's busy right now, like da-da-da. But like, it does give me a second to actually answer, and it does give me a moment to really orient myself to this particular task, because within my introvert dominant temperament, it's like I'm really used to, like, when I'm really focused in a task or when I'm really doing something, I have a little bit of a delayed response, like to different stimuli that like maybe like I'm not used to, or an unfamiliar stimuli asking me to like do something other, like it delays me for a second. I'm like, wait, I need to think about it. I need a second before I can actually respond to you. And sometimes within an extroverted dominant world, I feel like there's not a lot of opportunity to take that moment and pause. It's like sometimes people like, I asked you right now, you got to do it right now, or this is urgent. And I'm like, once again, sometimes the moment calls for that. But I think that what this book highlighted that I want to include in a lot of different things that I do, along with play, along with dream work, along with everything, right, is to just give that space for all different kinds of temperaments to flourish and to exist as they need to exist, and to not like just expect everything or everyone to be so automatic and so downright having to know what to do all the time. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this book. Would have it on the bookshelf. I have so many more thoughts. If you pick up this book and you read it, tell me your thoughts and stuff around it. It's really textual. I have to be honest, I did finish this book. Even when it got really redundant, I did finish it. But this is a book that I would have on my shelf to refer to. Once again, it has a lot of, since it's a texty read, it has that research, the neuroscience research, books for introverted kids. It has some cool resources in the back that makes this book not just like something to like just pick up, read, and then put down, but to really like develop research too. Alright, I think I'm done talking. I'm feeling that rumble in my belly that I'm a little hungry right now. And all three of these books are now done. I can take them back to the library because they've been taking up so much space on my desk. But yes, until next time, friends, Bubba Reads.